The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRCMedia, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
There are 10 candidates running for school committee in this year's Fall River Municipal election, and we're going to speak to as many as possible between now and November 4th when you go out and vote on Election Day. I'm pleased to be joined by one of the challengers looking for one of those 6 seats. She is Ana Riley. Ana, thank you for joining me today. How are you?
Good morning. I'm well, thank you.
Some people may know who you are, some people may not, so let's get right to it. Tell us a little bit about Ana Riley.
Sure. I'm born and raised in Fall River. My parents immigrated here in the late 60s and raised a family of 6 children, which I'm proud to be the oldest of. And, I went to school here, met my high school sweetheart. We were married. We have been married 33 years, and we have 6 children, all of whom have been, 5 of whom have been Durfee graduates, one who's a current sophomore.
And you have, in terms of your professional career, you've worked extensively in school departments on many levels. Talk about that.
Yeah, sure. I have been a teacher, a principal, an assistant superintendent, and superintendent for over 33 years. I started my career in Fall River as a teacher and then a principal. And then when I looked to expand my professional opportunities, I was hired in Dartmouth as the assistant superintendent, and I spent 6 years there really doing a lot of good work. Then I was recruited to Rhode Island. Former Commissioner Deb Gist was there, and I was excited to work with her, so I went over to Rhode Island. I've been there now 11 years. Seems like a blink, but I was superintendent in Portsmouth, Rhode Island for 5.5 years. Then I was recruited to the Department of Education as their deputy. And then after COVID, I really just wanted to be back in a district and be with students. And so I've been in Bristol Warren Regional School District now for about 4 years.
Why run for school committee?
So I'm running for school committee because I've been watching what's happening, and I just feel like I know it can be better. I know we have people on the school committee and in our schools that really care about kids, and I worry that the public perception of what happens at school committee meetings and what goes on publicly has a real impact on the district. I know it does, having been in districts and worked in schools. And so I just feel like a big step in improving and getting better is to really build a school committee that's respectful and works in partnership with the district.
Now, a year ago, you applied for the opening here in Fall River as superintendent. You were one of the finalists. You were there on that night when the school committee interviewed all the finalists. A question, that many people think, well, okay, if Ana gets in now with school committee, how will she work with, current superintendent Tracy Curley?
Sure. So you interview for jobs. You don't always get the jobs you interview for. I think I've demonstrated throughout my career I'm very professional. I mean, my goal is to work collaboratively with the district. It doesn't work unless you do, and I think we see some of that right now publicly in our meetings. You have to have a good working relationship with the district.
Your husband, Kyle, was a city councilor, ran for mayor in one of the recall elections not too long ago. Has he given you any advice? Could one of them be, what are you doing? I mean, how has his input been thus far?
Sure. I mean, we encourage each other. We're a team. And really, when I said, what do you think? He said, I think it's a great idea. You'd be great. And really, his tip is just be yourself. That's my goal. I'm who I am. I think I've done enough work. I've been in the public eye long enough in my role as superintendent and as deputy commissioner that people can get a good feel for the kind of work that I can accomplish and that I can get done.
Even though you live here in Fall River, do you feel that there may be some disconnect in terms of the people in the city who are interested in education because you haven't, even though you've got an experience here, you've worked in Fall River before, right, but you haven't done so in some time. Do you feel there could be a little disconnect there?
Well, I feel like I'm pretty engaged in my own children's education, and they've been in the district. So, my oldest is 31, so I have been engaged particularly at the high school level for quite a long time. So I definitely know what's happening with the curriculum and what's going on in particularly the high school, because that's where my son is. So I don't think I've lost touch with the district, particularly as a parent, which is the view most of us come to for school committee and the district. Would there be things I don't know that happen embedded in district? Right. I will. There will be things, but that's why you have a central office team, so they can make sure you're informed and make sure that you know what is happening that you need to know about.
Yeah. If elected, what will be your top priority on the committee?
I really, and I mentioned this even when I interviewed in Fall River, I really believe that we're missing a focus. We're missing that strategic plan. And a strategic plan isn't something that's the responsibility of the superintendent. I know that kind of feels like what's happening right now, but it's not. It's really a community priority. It has to be led by the school committee and the district office. It needs to include input from all stakeholders. It's got to have parent input. It's got to have staff input. It should have student input. And then once we agree upon those goals, the school committee votes those into a commitment that we're all going to abide by. How do we know where we're going, or how do we measure any success if we haven't set any agreed upon goals?
Yeah.
That's my big priority.
Yeah, right.
The other piece I would say is I really think the school committee needs to be focused on the things within its purview, which is budget, policy, and then working with the superintendent and her team to really make sure that we are supporting them in the work that they're doing.
Speaking of budget, the city of Fall River has received a large influx of funds in recent years through the Student Opportunity Act here in Massachusetts, which the legislature passed. I believe they're 6 years in, where it was an attempt to sort of equalize level the playing field in terms of financing based on a number of factors. Of course, gateway cities in the past have probably fallen prey to not being maybe funded to where they are. What are your thoughts in terms of the level of funding in Fall River and how it's been handled thus far under the Student Opportunity Act?
I do think there are more opportunities with the funding that we have. I would love for the school committee and for the district to consider student-based budgeting, which is really looking at giving schools, funding schools at levels that complement the level of student needs. So it's not this much money per student, but students who require more funding, like students who have special education needs or who are second language learners. There are students who need more funding to support the work that has to be done for them to be successful. And I think we should think about how we provide money to each school in terms of the different needs in each school.
Yeah. Have you had a chance to look at Fall River's budget? I mean, it has, it is public, and, you deal with this in Rhode Island, Bristol, Warren. Yeah. I mean, no, in some ways it's apples and oranges, but are there some similarities and some things that, as you mentioned, your school committee is a policy board and not, running the day-to-day operations. Right. But are there some ideas maybe you can take over from across the border that may work well here?
Absolutely. I think one of the things I noticed in the budget, because I did look through the budget, is that there doesn't seem to be a standardized way for principals to submit budgets, or at least not any that's shown publicly. I saw some different slides from some principals. I saw some didn't look like that there were slides from every principal in the budget packet that I saw. So I'd be interested to see how they collect that information, how they meet with their principals. One of the procedures I brought into place, and I did this in Massachusetts also in Dartmouth, is as superintendent, I invited school committee members, as long as we didn't have a quorum, to meet with my finance team and my principals to hear what those requests were in real time and to understand how you have to make decisions and prioritize. You can't give principals everything that they request. So what are the requests that were made that had data behind them, that supported them, that really could have an impact on students that we could fund? And I think that gives school committees a real insight into why there are needs and what those needs are when they're a part of the on-the-ground conversation. So I would love for our school committee and for our central admin team to consider inviting school committee members in. Again, not as a quorum. Folks can volunteer to join different meetings, but to hear that on-the-ground work and what's really needed in some of the buildings.
Recently, the state of Massachusetts released the MCAS scores here in Fall River. Pretty much status quo based on year to year, but still below in terms of either exceeding or meeting the expectations of that test compared to the rest of the Commonwealth. Urban districts are a lot more difficult than suburban districts in terms of educational attainment. As one school committee member, how can you help provide ideas that will maybe turn that around?
Right. I do think that's something that would come out in a strategic plan for sure. And some of the things that I know work is really highlighting successful practices. We have some urban examples in Massachusetts where we have seen success. How can we replicate that? How can we make sure that the professional learning we're giving our teachers aligns to those things? So, the big turnaround in Brockton High School now, quite a few years ago, more than 10 at this point, really happened because of some commitment from the staff at the high school around a set of professional learnings and standards they were all going to hold each other accountable to, and they produced incredible results. I know we have incredible teachers, so do we have opportunities where we can provide some supports for those teachers to create that level of commitment and really work to improve student achievement? I mean, we have smart kids. They're in every school. So what are we doing to make sure that they can demonstrate how smart they are on those tests? Because that's really the shift. Our kids are capable of doing the work that's on the MCAS. I don't doubt that for a minute. What I worry about is that we're not helping them translate all of the things they're learning onto paper, into that test, so that people can see that how smart our students are. And so I think there's work to be done there, and I think we can do that.
Fall River has had an issue filling all its open positions. Teachers are among them, specifically special ed teachers. Has been a problem to fill. That impacts, again, right down the line possibly, right, in terms of the teaching itself in the classrooms. What do you think is the reason behind this? Is Fall River just a difficult district to work for? Is it the urban environment? Is it pay? I mean, teachers just received a new contract. I mean, how do you work that out?
I think you have not working in the district,
right,
and not currently being on the school committee. I can only talk about general best practice. Sure. And so when I think about how you recruit folks, you have to be able to offer them something that maybe isn't offered someplace else. There is an allure to working in an urban district. You know you're making a difference when you work in an urban district, and that's appealing to a lot of young teachers. So what is it that is keeping folks from coming here? Most people don't go into teaching for the money. They don't. So, I mean, making sure we have a fair wage for teachers is definitely important. I'm not saying that, and making sure that we're competitive is important, but I'm not convinced it's just money that is the reason that folks don't come here. So what is that reason? That's something I'd like to learn a little bit more about and hear a little bit more about from principals and staff on what the barriers are to getting all of their positions filled, because there seems to me that there has to be more to this story.
Yeah. What role do or should parents play in terms of supporting their children and their education? It may be a little more difficult in cities like Fall River just because of the socioeconomic demographics of this region. What can be done in that field?
Yeah, so parents are our partners for sure. I mean, we have them half the day, they have them the other half of the day, so we need them to partner with us. And certainly there are barriers. I was the principal of Osborne School, and we had 88% free and reduced lunch. All of our parents were working. We really didn't have parents who could commit time to sitting with, even as much as they wanted to sitting with their children. So we had to create those opportunities. So we, provided extended day. We got the expanded learning time grant so that parents could come in and we could provide dinner, but we could show them how to help their students with homework or just review or just read, particularly at the elementary school, just reading to your child, which is something you can do. It doesn't have to be every day. Every day would be great, but anytime you can spend reading to your child is important. And sometimes parents need help in just knowing what to do. I think people still joke about the new math, which can't be new anymore because we've been calling it new math for way too many years.
For a long time, yeah.
But parents don't always know how to help their children. So providing, now that all of our online features are really like every school can do a Zoom, can do a webinar. So really just having those open houses online with parents to say, let's go through a second grade homework assignment today with your second grade teacher and have them just present it to parents on, here's how I would help your child if they were sitting down with their homework. I think we need to help provide some guidance, but also let them know that just reading to them is something they can do that will benefit their children.
Yeah. If elected, you'll be one of 7 members of the City Council. Of course, the mayor is also a member of this City Council School Committee.
Yeah.
Wrong body. Member of the school committee. Is a lot more consensus you need there than if, in your role, again, as an administrator,
Right.
you're sort of running the district. How do you feel you'd be able to work with the other members? Obviously, we don't know who the 6 are yet, but...
Right. I've been working with school committees for 12 years. You have to be a team. You have to really work to make sure the members are informed, by the central office team, so that we have all the information we need, and then that we can have conversations in a respectful way that lead to a vote. And then I think the important thing to remember as a school committee is once we vote, we've all agreed. Even if you voted no, if the vote is approved, now we as one body have to support whatever that decision was, and I think that's important. And I hope that we can come to a place where we can respectfully disagree and not have to raise our voices or not have to, attack a member personally. It shouldn't be personal. We should be discussing the issues, not the people who are presenting the issue.
All right. Ana Riley, candidate for school committee. Thank you for joining me. All the best. I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
All right. And thank you for joining us here on FRC Media. Please make a point to vote on Tuesday, November 4th.